Hello and welcome to a best of edition of No Wrong Choices. With the NFL season kicking off this week, we thought it was the perfect time to revisit our conversation with Curtis Conway, a wide receiver who spent 12 years in the league with the Bears, Chargers, Jets, and 49ers before moving into broadcasting. I'm Larry Samuels, soon to be joined by Tushar Saxena and Larry Shea. In the first part of this two-part series, you'll hear how Curtis's upbringing and inner drive shaped his career. Tushar will ask the first question after my brief lead-in. Let's get started. Curtis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Curtis, I'm going to ask, you spent so much time in the league, right? You had 3,000-yard seasons. You were considered one of the toughest guys in the league. What is Curtis Conway doing now?
Man, right now, today, or just postseason after I retire?
Well, I mean, we could probably go with today if you'd like, but we'll go with post-career. We'll go with post-career.
Well,
if somebody were to meet Curtis Conway for the first time, what would you tell them, or who would you tell them you are?
I'm a little bit of everything. At this age, I'm a dad, I'm a coach. You name it, businessman. So many different hats that I put on. It's just a matter of what day and time I'm in. But for the most part, I would say I've kind of dedicated myself to just being a husband and a father until my kids are out of school. I was broadcasting and I really enjoyed that. But me and my wife, who's really busy before we had kids, we sat down and talked and we said, we're both going in our second careers. Once we have kids, we don't want to do the nanny and babysitting thing all the time. So somebody's going to have to, shut it down. To be quite frank, I didn't think it was going to be me. I'm like, we have kids. I'm going to be right here in my broadcasting career or coaching or doing something. So the wife is going to be the one staying home, but didn't turn out that way. So, but I enjoy it. I enjoy being a father and being able to help my wife with, a lot of the things that she's doing. I feel like God blessed me with what I really wanted to do in life, and that's play football and be able to give back to my community. And I was able to do that at such a young age to where I feel like now I can enjoy the fruits of my labor.
We love that answer. And by the way, his wife is a household name, Layla Ali. Let's put that right there on the table. But we love that answer, that you're a family guy and that comes first. Let's bring you all the way back to the beginning, though, because we want to start your journey from the beginning and make it linear. So we know you were an athlete as a kid, but from just reading your bio, reading about you, learning about who you are, you were more of a track guy, were you not, than a football player?
No, they get that wrong all the time. They think because guys are fast in football, track was the thing. I didn't start running track until I was in high school, so I'd already had 5 years of Pop Warner football up under my belt before I put on spikes.
So you started as a football player. Like, when did you get into sports as a kid? When did it start to have meaning to you? Take us through that progression.
Well, since I was a kid, I'm talking like 6, 7, 8, sports was always important because that's what we did as kids. Saturday morning, elementary school, when, recess, we played basketball, we played kickball, we played football. So sports was always important. We always looked forward to doing something sports oriented as kids. And of course, once you start playing organized sports as a kid, I played Pop Warner football for Inglewood, Pop Warner, starting at 9 years old. And it was so fun. My mom didn't want me to play, but I bugged her enough to where she couldn't deny me from playing. And then once I got out there and she saw what I was able to do my first year, the rest was history. And I don't think the coaches wouldn't allow me to stop playing if my mom would have tried to. They made sure I was.
What happened in that first year? What did you do?
Well, I was really good. I will say that. My mom, of course, never saw me play football. Of course, I'm just playing in the street with all the kids and all the older kids, but I was always fast. So the older kids would always pick me and we would play in the street. And we had this rule called sideline tackle, which meant there was a little strip of grass by the curb. And if you're on that sideline, you got tackled onto that grass from the street. Well, I was probably the smallest kid, but I would get picked all the time because I was pretty athletic and I was fast. So the bigger boys, they used to punish me pretty good on the sideline. But it made me it made me tough mentally, physically, to when I got to play with kids my age, in my mind, and this went throughout high school and even throughout college. My mindset was always these guys that I'm playing with is my age or either 3 or 4 years older than me. So my confidence level was so high because of what I experienced playing in the street with the teenagers as a kid.
So is that confidence that you took then when you played more organized sports, whether it be, or not, I shouldn't say organized, but when you were able to play on the high school level, let's say when you got to LA and you're playing more varsity and you're obviously excelling on the field. I wanted to talk to us a little bit like how important it is to have a coach who is influential on you or has a good influence, or how influential a coach can be on a young athlete.
I'm gonna be very honest in this interview, or whatever we want to call it. A coach didn't have to influence me. It was never a coach. It was no one. I naturally was a natural competitor, and I really got it from the guys in my neighborhood. Like, really, it was that mentality that I developed, was my surroundings growing up. I say this all the time, and it's funny. People think I'm crazy when I say it, but when I was playing Little League Pop Warner, my coaches were so tough on us to where when I got to high school and college, when coaches would try to get tough on me, it was like a joke. Like, I done already been through the worst that you can be around, because we had a certain standard that we had to live by growing up in South Central LA. So, hard work and being tough, once I got to high school and college, it was already built in. So if anybody that I would give credit to, it would be the teenagers and the guys that I grew up around that were older than me, who and it wasn't verbal. It was by action. You had to be tough. You had to have a competitive mentality growing up where I grew up. So it was like competing was easy. Being tough was easy. Motivation was easy. I was always self-motivated just based on what we went through playing in the street.
And so that translated over into organized ball, right? You get yes. to what, the high school level, and you start taking it a little more seriously?
Describe serious, because I know some people when they say serious, it's like I start training, I start thinking about the NFL, I started, working on my body and all. I did none of that. Like, I love to play sports. Like, it wasn't about, okay, let me get a trainer. Like, everybody got a trainer now. Everybody wants to lift weights and look a certain way. It was really just kids playing sports. It wasn't like on the off season of football in high school. For an example, I was a varsity quarterback as a sophomore. When football season was over, you couldn't get me to talk about football because it was track season. So I was running track. I wasn't trying to run track to get fast. To play football, I was running track because I was fast and I wanted to win races. Right. So it was really like I always just lived in the moment, if that makes any sense. Yeah, It was never like, okay, I'm taking this serious. Like, everything that I did competitive, I took serious. Like, I'm a sore loser. And what I mean by that is I hate to lose. And if I lose, I'm going to figure out a way to come back and win. So, to be honest with you, I can't say there was a time where I was like, man, let me get serious about this sports stuff, because I was always in that mindset once I started playing organized sports. Like, I played for a really good Pop Warner organization where they won. And so I was a huge part of it when I got there also. And, losing wasn't an option. So we competed, man. And, I tell my son this all the time. I had friends when I was at SC, when I moved from quarterback to wide receiver, I had friends that were playing the position. Oh, well, they got me.
I'm here now.
I'm here now. So you in my spot. So that was always my mentality.
So I want to ask then, because actually, you brought up a really good question, a really good point about the idea of season to season. Once football ended, then it was track season, and then when track season ended, it was another sport. Now, full disclosure, you're not the first athlete we've had join us, and the one thing that we've kind of noticed when it comes to like great athletes, that great athletes are great athletes and they're great at athletics. So obviously, you had a love for sports and you had a love for competing. Was football always your first love, or did you have other sports that you really enjoyed? Like Randy Moss always said that he thought he'd be a better basketball player. Dave Winfield often said that he wanted to be a football player and was actually drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. So was football always the sport that you wanted to play? I mean, not say you wanted to be a professional in it, but was that always your sport?
No, not at all. I was a basketball player, man. You couldn't have told me back in the day I wasn't Lil Magic Johnson,
Especially in LA.
Yeah, especially in LA. I grew up right down the street. If anybody knew the park that I played in Pop Warner is literally probably 200 yards from the Los Angeles Farm in Inglewood. So, I was Magic Johnson. And so the funny story, I played basketball up until my sophomore year in high school, and I stopped because our basketball team wasn't that good, and everybody was saying, man, you should run track. We travel, we go out of town, we compete on a whole different level. The basketball team not that good. So my football coaches and track coaches didn't know, but by basketball season and track season being at the same time, I was still young enough as a sophomore to play rec ball. So I was running track in the 9th grade and the 10th grade and still playing rec ball when I was in high school. So once I got to the 11th grade, I was too old to play basketball rec. So that's when I ended up stopped playing basketball. But man, basketball was really my first love. I like on Friday nights after a game in high school, and I'm talking about all the way up to my last game of the season. You best believe Saturday morning, I was in the neighborhood playing pick up basketball somewhere, either at the school or at the gym. So it's funny because people will be like, man, you was just balling last night on the football field, and here you are in the neighborhood playing with a bunch of dudes that could possibly hurt you out here. But again, it wasn't like today where I can't do this because I might get hurt. It was like, okay, we playing against this neighborhood. We playing against these guys.
It's a different world, man. It is a different world.
Yeah.
So rec ball was like the Y or something like that, or was it organized?
Yeah, it was organized. It was park leagues. It was the park league. So I continued to play with the park league.
Got it. Now, when you were playing at the playground on a Saturday and you're going down there and it's pickup basketball, in LA, in the area you're describing, like, what were those games like? How rough were those?
It was real rough. It was like, again, so just it's growing up in the hood of South Central LA at a time where gang violence and drugs was at an all-time high. So this is the type of atmosphere I'm playing in, but I grew up in that, so it was normal for me. It wasn't like an outsider looking in. This was normal life. So again, you don't think twice about, oh, I'm a high school football star, I might get hurt. It's like, nah, it's game time. I'm at the park. I'm gonna dunk on you if you try to block my shot. I'm gonna still, it was that atmosphere. So when I think back on it, it's just like getting hurt and worrying about the things that could happen never crossed my mind. Like I said, I always lived in that moment. So if I'm playing basketball at the park Friday night after a game or at the school, guess what? I'm trying to stay on the court, because if you lose, well, you might get picked up if you're a good athlete, but if you lose, you're not getting on the court. So once you get your 5, it's like, we out here to win. We're not out here worrying about, I'm going to stay in the corner and shoot jumpers because I don't want you to, foul me and I hit the pole or I hit the concrete. Like, nah, we playing ball.
That's awesome. Now, Curtis, I have to ask this question because you brought it up and sort of went down this path. Growing up in the neighborhood that you were in at that time, with the gang life that, we would see on the news and everything else. I mean, clearly that was close to you, that was around you. How did that impact you?
Uh, it was a way of life. Um, Man, I can go in so many directions with this. As crazy as this sound, I survived it, so I could take a lot of the positives that most people that didn't survive would say it was a negative for them. I would say the best thing for me was I was always a leader. So it didn't matter if my friends at 8 years old playing football at 13 decide they wanted to tote guns and gang bang. I was still Curtis, and I still hung with those guys. It's just when they decided to do certain activities, I wasn't involved in it, and I never had to be involved in it because we were friends. A lot of people don't really understand that culture, especially back then. We grew up in that situation. Right. So these are the same guys that's in and out of jail that I'm talking about. We were playing football on the street. So I don't look at the drug dealers and the gangbangers the same way outsiders may do, because I really know who they are deep down inside. Certain circumstances and situations and decisions that they made based on our environment and choices that they made went that direction. So I'm not that one who say I'm better than the guys that made it out my neighborhood. I just love football, so there was nothing going to deter me away from the game. They didn't love football. They were talented and they could play football, basketball. They were just as athletic as I was. They just didn't love it as much as I did, to where gangs and selling drugs and doing all these things would take them away. I was okay with not having a lot of money and not having the nice clothes and not doing all those things. For some reason, I can't take credit for it. It was just who I was growing up. It's still who I am today.
Yeah.
So,
you had a purpose.
I will say this: I'm not Curtis Conway, the man, as a father, as an athlete. I'm nothing without growing up on 56 in Central and South Central LA. I draw everything from those experiences. Even today, my mentor, who was he was a really good dude, but he was a drug dealer, and he sold drugs. But watching him, he was a family man. He's married, still married to the girl he was with in high school today. He just did what he had to do to make a living. But I know the man, and so he's the reason I'm the father I am and the husband I am, because I saw how he treated his wife. But on the outside looking in, you would think this criminal, this guy, but I knew who he was inside. But I knew what he had to do to provide for his family. So again, I can take a lot of the things that people see as negatives, I can take them as positive because I experienced them and I can speak on it. And so, man, I wouldn't trade anything from what I experienced growing up in South Central. Nothing.
I love that you say that. It defined you. It made you who you are, and you wouldn't change a thing. That's important. I guess my question would be, it built your mental toughness. Obviously, the street ball built your physical toughness. I think toughness is probably one of your best professional qualities. But I would say, how easily could it have slipped away? I mean, you're with these people all the time and they're friends. Like, is it possible that it could have gone in a different direction, or you were just never going to let it happen because football was too important?
Yeah, I mean, because this is your everyday life. Like, there's been plenty of moments in my life where my life could have been taken. There's been plenty of times in my life where I could have been set up by the police because I'm around the wrong crowd and they just want to plant drugs on you to get you to talk about who's the big drug dealer in the neighborhood. Like, it was, we call it a concrete jungle. You had to experience, like, every day. This was, if you go back and you look up the 80s and the 90s in South Central LA, just wearing a red shirt or a blue shirt in the wrong neighborhood can get you killed. Not beat up, not shot, but killed. So my high school was red. So if I'm wearing my red sweatpants on the bus going to school, and the bus is going through another a rival neighborhood, a kid gets on the bus, or a teenager or a young adult get on the bus with a gun, he had no problem with shooting. Like, shooting was fundamental back then. So it wasn't but to us, it was we understood how to, for lack of better terms, we understood how to move and what to do in situations. We knew all this because I'm a product of that. I just chose not to do that, but I'm around it every day. Like I mean, I've seen it all. I mean, I've seen guys get shot right next to me. I've seen friends go in and out of jail. I've seen the goodest, the nicest kid at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, he's a murderer and has no problem with, going to kill somebody for the neighborhood. So, growing up in that environment, like I said, we don't look at it. We didn't. It was different for us. That was life. So it wasn't a wow situation. It was, this is what it is. You either choose to be or choose not to be, and you live your life and you try to survive as you're growing up. And luckily, I made it out. But trust me, man, I didn't got hit by. I done got hit with billy clubs by the police. Just being a kid walking down the street with my friends, and they think we're gang members, but we just kids that live in the neighborhood, and who's going to believe us versus the police?
Right.
So we had to, but we understood that. It wasn't like, oh man, we understood that the police had the upper hand and they didn't care. And because we seen it so many times that it became normal to us. You know what I mean? We just had to, again, it wasn't a second thought. It was life.
Did you have a burning desire to get out? Was that part of sports and looking towards junior college, looking towards what eventually became USC? Or like what was that dynamic?
You know what? I love my community. I loved it to the point to where I went to the closest university to my house, USC.
Yeah.
Like, USC is right in the heart of South Central. It's probably 8 minutes from my driveway. There was nothing about my community, and it was bad, but that was my community.
It was home.
It was home. My friends was there. My family was there. I never... My story is not the typical, man, I got to make it out to buy my mother a house and all that. It happened organically because I love to play football. And I did whatever it took to play football and get better. So, okay, I'm a senior. I gotta do all these things to get to college. So if this is going to prevent me from playing football, then I'm going to do it, whether it's get good grades, pass the SAT, which was a huge pivotal point in my life, my senior year, not passing the SAT. But I did whatever I had to do to play the game. And it just kept going from one year to the next to being the best on this, being the best at this position, now getting drafted to the Chicago Bears. At that point, the love for football was my driving point of everything I did.
All right, so I was going to ask you a bit about the notion of, and I understand that USC is in Compton, and it's very close, obviously, to where you grew up. So, but I was still going to ask the question of, was USC something of an oasis from your neighborhood that you grew up? But maybe that's the wrong question to ask, because in many senses it didn't really matter. Let me ask you this: your 2 years at your JUCO, was that more important to you than your 2 years at USC?
Let me explain that situation, just so a lot of people don't know that story. I didn't spend 2 years at a JUCO. I didn't even spend a year at a JUCO.
Okay.
How much time you got?
Go.
Because
as much as you're willing to give us.
Nobody knows the truth. People that know, but the media, they mess the story up all the time because they don't really know. They just take bits and pieces, and I never really talked about it publicly. So you guys are basically getting this firsthand.
Okay.
Out of high school, my senior year in high school, I took the SAT. I didn't take the SAT until the second semester of my senior year. Now, mind you, I'm an All-American as a track guy as a 9th grader. I'm a starting quarterback as a 10th grader. I'm getting letters all over the country since my 10th grade year. And the SAT wasn't presented to me in a serious manner until the second semester of my senior year. With that being said, I'm running track. Every Saturday, we got a big track meet. Every Saturday is the SAT. I failed the SAT 3-4 times and didn't go to USC. I signed a letter of intent in January for USC and didn't pass the SAT. So my first year out of high school, I was back in the neighborhood. I didn't go to JUCO that September. I didn't go to junior college that September after I graduated. I was working construction. That first semester while studying for the SAT. I passed the SAT the first time I took it because I finally got an opportunity to study for. You got to remember back then, you had to pay to go to a SAT course.
Yeah, prep
and I
course,
went to Princeton. Prep course. They didn't have it at the high schools, so it wasn't available. The preparation wasn't available to me. And once I got out of high school, I got a job, and I was able to afford Princeton Review, which was like
what an incredible story.
Yeah, it was like an 8-week course, and after 8 weeks, that Saturday after the 8 weeks, you go and take the test. So I did that, and I passed the test. A lot of people don't realize I went to Nebraska that summer. When Nebraska was actually better than USC, they wanted to Prop 48 me. So out of high school, I couldn't go to SC because I didn't pass the test. I went to Nebraska because they was willing to bring me in on the Prop 48, which meant that I couldn't play football. I couldn't be around the team, but I can go to school and I lose my redshirt year and my medical year, but I still have 3 years to play. So because of my ego, I went, but being a Trojan was always in my heart. And so the day I'm in Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, and I don't know if you guys remember a running back by the name of Derek Brown.
No, I don't.
I don't.
Yeah, he played for the Saints for a minute, went to Nebraska. We both go there on the Prop 48. We were like two of the highly ranked athletes coming out of California that year. And I never forget, we were in line to turn in our classes, and he went first. And it was my time. And as I was getting up, I went to him and I told him, I said, man, I think I'm going back home. And he's like, what? Like, bro, we're here. We've been there like 2 weeks. Long story short, I went back to the dorm. I called my uncle and I told him I didn't want to play here. I wanted to come back and try to study for the SAT to get into USC. I'm like, I'm a Trojan. I always wanted to go there, not because of no other reason other than I wanted to go there. It wasn't the coach. It wasn't the players. I wanted to go to SC. So everybody tried to talk me out of it because, like, you about to come back to the neighborhood? Are you crazy? You finally got out of here. So I they end up getting me a ticket. I went to talk to Tom Osborne and told him that I wanted to be released. He released me, and I went back home and I got a job, and that's when I started studying for the test. I passed it on the first one in September. Now I'm thinking, because I was a dual sport guy and I was going to do both of them at USC, that they would at least bring me in the spring for track. They was like, USC said no, they wasn't going to bring me in. So now I passed the test in September. I'm working construction. And so what happened was the second semester, I started taking courses that would transfer into USC at El Camino College.
Okay.
So that was my little stint into junior college. I didn't play ball. I wasn't training. I wasn't running track. I wasn't doing nothing. You
were just trying to get
working,
credits.
Just getting credits.
Gotcha. All right. So how important to you was the USC experience? Forget the football part of it. How important was it being at USC?
It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, to be quite frank. You had to grow up a lot. I learned a lot in terms of like just time management alone.
Yeah, that's college.
Trying to shuffle football around classes. We had to schedule our classes around football practice. It wasn't the other way around. So, you might be from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, you might be at the school, going to class, practice, weightlifting, watching tape. That was a crazy experience because, in high school, you go to school, you practice, you go home. you had to grow up a lot. You have nobody telling you, you had to get up and go to school. If you didn't want to go to class, you didn't have to go to class. You had to go to class, but you didn't have to go to class, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I was in college once too.
Yeah, right. You guys know what I mean.
How many hours a week did you have to put into football? Like what was that commitment?
I don't think it was a normal practice. You go to practice. I think practice was like an hour, 40 minutes. Film was probably 30 minutes before practice, and you probably had to lift at some point during the day. You had to find time between classes to go lift, and that was probably 30 minutes of lifting. It wasn't so much, it wasn't a lot of time that we had to spend with football that was hard. It was juggling the schedules because, like, say, for instance, you have a class that you need to take, but it's during the time you got film or you have football practice. Now, either you can't take the class or you got to, those were the hardest things and at that time you're thinking school's supposed to be so important, yet and still we have to schedule our classes around football. And being honest, the coach don't want to hear that. He's trying to win football games. So, the notion to think that a coach really cares about school, trust me, let one of the star players say, well, my class is during practice. Well, you better figure it out. You won't be missing practice, that's for sure. So I think that was the hardest part is having to go from class to practice to film and just do all these different pockets. Whereas in high school, you went to school was out the way. You go to practice, you practice, and then you go home and you do homework.
It's so funny as you're talking about this. It sounds like playing football was actually the easiest part of this time of your life. The other stuff was hard, the organization, the independence, the becoming a man. But you're obviously plying your trade. You're getting better every day. At what point do you say to yourself, I think I could play on the next level?
Never. And it sounds crazy, man. Anybody that knows me know I never talked about the NFL. I never talked about I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I always lived in the moment. I went to USC as a quarterback. So my first year, I was in the quarterback room and I was returning kicks. Todd Marinovich was the quarterback when I got there.
The name I haven't heard in forever. My God,
he was an amazing quarterback. That's a whole nother story. But you couldn't have told me by my sophomore year that I wasn't going to beat him out.
Right.
And I probably wouldn't have, but you couldn't have told me that I wasn't. So I was playing quarterback. What happened with Todd ended up leaving. So I was talented enough where they was like, we got to put him on the field. So they allowed me to return kicks as a backup quarterback.
Wow.
How crazy is that, right? That's how much I love playing football. I told the coach, man, I'm not sitting on no bench. There's too many things that I can do. So if I'm not the starting quarterback, I got to do something. And so, again, I was fast. They allowed me to return kicks. And I was in the quarterback room. My sophomore year, Todd left for the draft and ended up getting drafted in the first round by the Raiders. And so now me and a guy, we're competing for the starting job in the spring and in the summer. But what ended up happening was SC, because we were both athletic, they wanted us to run the option. And and everybody just assumed because I had a lot of rushing yards, I was an option quarterback, and you can't go anywhere in my high school film and find me running the option.
Right.
I was the modern day quarterback. Now I was the guy that dropped back, and I was fast enough and had the mobility enough to break the pocket and make things happen. And so when I got to SC, of course, my sophomore year, they wanted to run the option. And true story. I remember after the Arizona State game, I scored on the option play. That kind of solidified me. And I went to the offensive coordinator and I told him I didn't want to play quarterback.
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
Said,
really?
Why? You could be an all Pac-10 quarterback. And I said, well, I've seen the likes of Jamel Holloway, Turner Gill.
Right.
Yeah, I remember those guys.
Major Harris.
Yeah.
I saw these guys be amazing, and they didn't get a shot at the pros. I'm like, that's not going to be me. And of course, at this point, he's like, your quarterback is telling you he don't want to play. He want to do something else. And so for weeks, he kept trying to get me to play. Of course, I was playing, but reluctant, and finally by mid-season, I ran. And mind you, me and the other quarterback, we're still going back and forth. Nobody had solidified the job, but I was out there, and they wouldn't put me in other positions. But I was still able to return kicks because I was really good as a freshman. So you couldn't take me off a kickoff return or punt return. So long story short, I run back a punt return for a touchdown against Stafford, and all of a sudden, I go in the meeting room and I was like, I want to play wide receiver. Coach was in denial, like, no. And so I told him I'm a transfer if I don't move.
Oh, wow. I was wondering what leverage you had for these conversations. So you pulled that card.
Did you say you were going to transfer to Nebraska?
Well, I told him I was going to transfer, and he thought I was playing. So he ended up calling my grandmother, and my grandmother said, man, Curtis has been making his own decisions since he was 14. You talking to the wrong person. Like, if he decides he's going to leave, trust me, he's going to leave.
Oh,
and
wow.
what ended up happening was 2 weeks later, they moved me to wide receiver, and I was probably like the 4th or 5th wide receiver, and you can tell that they were trying to make it tough on me.
Oh, interesting.
Because it would have been easy for me to go back to quarterback and get on the field. But again, I'm the ultimate competitor. And that's when I had friends in front of me that, and I was like, come on, man, y'all. In my mind, these guys are not better than me, even though they've been playing receiver in high school. And this is my first time playing wide receiver. And, a couple of weeks, I was the starter.
Wow. How are they making it difficult for you? Were they sabotaging you somehow?
Well, at wide receiver, it's up for the quarterback has to get you the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So they, I don't think they were trying to sabotage me. I think in my own mind, because I felt like if they wasn't throwing me the ball, they want me to play quarterback. That was my mindset. But it was a lot of times I was open and I wasn't getting the ball, and I was like, come on. And I'm a quarterback, so I know where the ball should go. I was just back there. So,
right.
I was a little. I was a little menace for a second. I would say that, but it ended up working out. A lot of people don't realize, man, I only played wide receiver a year and a half at USC.
That's amazing.
And I was just showing my son the other day that somebody sent me something where they were talking about me. If I would have stayed in school, I definitely would have been up for the Heisman going into my senior year. So. I played a year and a half. I ain't going to say a whole year and a half. I'll say a year and a couple games at wide receiver, and left school as a true junior and, was a top 10 pick, number 1 wide receiver taken. So, again, it was just football. It had nothing to do with the NFL. It's like, okay, you think this guy's better than me? Let's compete. When we got on the field, it didn't matter who we were playing. It didn't matter. I didn't even take a lot of stock in, this guy's an All-American cornerback. We're playing against this defense. None of that ever mattered to me. You got to remember, my mindset was these guys are my age or maybe 3 or 4 years older. They didn't, my mind was my conditions as a kid was way worse than any organized football game could ever be. So I was never afraid of anything. And I've always, in my mind, felt like I was going to succeed because I had that competitive drive. And I felt like I've already been in the worst conditions that I can be in. Like I said, there's no cement there. I got a uniform on.
Right.
This guy is my size and I'm 19, he's 20.
Yep.
That's how I approach things. So it didn't really matter if you were All-American at my age. You my age, and I'm an All-American, so good luck for you.
You're built for this.
Somebody better pray for you. Yeah, somebody better pray for you.
That's right.
All right. So, obviously, this podcast is about, trying to give advice to others. And all we've done thus far is talk about your life, which is just unbelievably fascinating, beyond belief. So the one thing that I think we can all kind of take away from this is just your pure determination, like your inner drive and your pure determination. So I guess as we before we kind of get back into your story a little bit, is that the main, let's say the main piece of advice you would give for, and I wouldn't say just for any young and up and coming athlete, but for any young and up and coming student or person, is that, look, part of success has to be the inner drive. There's
nothing other than that. what does Kobe always talk about? The Mamba mentality. It had nothing to do with his talent. Remember, Kobe said, I remember something where I saw Kobe said that in high school, they had him ranked 50-something. So in his mind, he was like, who are these guys in front of me?
Right.
And every time he played against them, he went at them. Think about the mentality that Kobe had. Remember, Jordan got cut in high school.
Yeah.
He wasn't so, look at his chip on his shoulder. Remember, Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick. So everybody just assumed the great athlete as a kid, because he's talented, is going to be that. Man, no, like if it ain't in you, it's just not in you. I've grew up with some of the most talented athletic people, but they didn't love it enough. It didn't mean enough to them. You know, it meant a lot to Tom Brady. It meant a lot to Michael Jordan. It meant a lot to Kobe. Had nothing to do with our physical gifts. God blessed us with some physical tools that we were able to work with, man, but everything you do is about mentality and how you approach it and the will and what are you willing to do when the chips are down. Because in everything you do in life, you're going to have some times where things are not going good. What keeps you in that field is the fact that you love it. I tell people all the time, I can tell if you love it or not. Like everything I told you, everything I did centered around, if I had to build a house and you said I couldn't play football if I didn't build a house, I was going to build that house. That's how much I loved. Like you couldn't keep me off the field. That's just what it was. If you were like, and that, I believe that is the driving force. Some people will get away with talent. But the ultimate goal, the real dudes, man, trust me, they got something in them you can't teach. It has to be in there already. And unfortunately, a lot of people can say a lot of things and try to motivate people. And if you train hard, and I know people who train harder than most people and still didn't make it. The advice I would give people is find something you love. Don't find something you like. Don't find something that make a lot of money. Because in this country, we're sold that the rich is the way of life. So everybody's trying to, like in my community, everybody wants to be the athlete. Everybody wants to be the rapper. Everybody wants to do these things. Man, find out what you really love and be the best at that. Because everything else, man, there's going to come times where if you in it for the money or if you in it for the fame, man, there's going to be times where it don't feel too good. And you know, you're going to have to be able to fight through it. And that's just spirit and mentality right there. It has nothing to do with how fast you can run or how you can jump, how many touchdowns you scored, man. Or can you go out there and play when you're injured? You know, can you go out there and play when a coach is telling you, you know, we just drafted this guy at wide receiver. We need you to help him out. Like people don't really understand that about, you know, professional sports, especially football. You know, you're supposed to have this mentality of, oh, we're a team sport. Okay, they draft a receiver. And then the coach is telling you, Curtis, you got to get him up to speed. So you're teaching a guy to take money out of your pocket.
Right. Yep.
Wow. Think about that for a second. We need him to help the team, Curtis, so you got to bring him up to speed. You got to teach him the ropes. So after you show the guy everything you know, you look him in the eye and saying, bro, you still not going to take my job. So I'm still competing.
Which theoretically makes both of you better, I guess.
Yeah, again, pray for him. You're not getting my job. You know what I'm saying? So again, that was my mentality. So it still comes down to a mentality because you always got young talent coming up trying to take your job. And, you know, you got to be willing to go out there and fight through a lot of stuff, man. So will for me is number one. I like to tell people, you know, get in your quiet space and just find what you love. Like, what do you love to do naturally? Take the money out of it. Because again, like I told you guys, it was never about money. I played more basketball. I watched more basketball. I liked more basketball players than I did football. I didn't even really watch football. I was always about basketball. But I love to play football, if that makes any sense. I just love to play football. I didn't care.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't care about watching it. I wanted to play it. If I watched one series of football, I'm going outside with my football trying to round up everybody. Come on, y'all, let's play football. I loved it. You know, that was in me. So I can sit up here all day and fluff it, man, but I know for me, I can speak for myself and a lot of guys. Man, you got to have some kind of mentality. You got to have some kind of drive, and ultimately, you got to love what you do to be the best. Because and only because there's going to be times where you fail. And what are you going to do in those moments when it's not good? And most people, everybody. I tell people this all the time. Everybody want to make it to the NFL. ESPN, they show highlights. They don't show the guys training on the offseason, throwing up on the sideline while they training. Nobody gets to see none of the hard work. Thank God for the cameras now so you can see these guys, the work that they put in on the offseason. But, this stuff, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And again, as talented as you can be, if you don't have that inner drive to say, man, I'm going out here no matter what. Oh, you trying to take my job? Okay, these are your teammates that you're still competing with every day.
Iron sharpens iron, right? I mean,
iron sharpens iron.
That's the way it is. This seems like a great time to talk about losing, like not succeeding. I mean, you're talking to three hosts right here who just had our fandom football team's asses kicked this past weekend. So we're all licking our wounds a little bit. And it's hard, like as a fan, to like lose and watch your team lose. How is that as a player? Do you get over it? How long does it take? What do you do? I mean, this is your livelihood. Or is it, hey, this is a job. I got to turn the page, get better and move on and try it a different way or work a little harder. Like, what is the mentality there?
I can only speak for myself without putting any names out there. I've played with players that really didn't care. Man, they getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
A lot of people drive is the money, like I said, and they're talented enough to make it. Like I said before, I'm a competitor and I'm a sore loser, so I always wore it on my shoulders. If we lost to a team, you best believe I was trying to get them back. I would even develop some kind of hatred in my own mind because I know it's just a game and we shaking hands afterwards. And, but for me, I had to develop some kind of negative something to you because you beat me.
Yeah. That was the Jordan thing, right? He used to get mad at someone on the other team and make a story up, whatever it was. Didn't have to be true.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that, but man, that's what it is. It's like, wait a minute, they beat us. They got the upper hand. Like and I had some pretty bad seasons in Chicago. But man, you start to hate the other team. No matter who's on the team, right. you hate them. It's not until the offseason where you can kind of digress a little bit and get over it. But especially when you're playing teams in your division, if you lose to them the first time and you got another opportunity to play them, man, it's like the Super Bowl.
Of course.
It's like the Super Bowl. Wait, y'all beat us the last. Oh, man, y'all not doing it. I don't care if I got to play against everybody. It's that mentality. So I will say, man, losing, it's tough, man. And I've been on teams where our leaders, some guys would be on the back of the plane laughing and talking like we didn't lose. And, you have some players that go back in the back and have a word or two and maybe a hand or two. Like, how are y'all back here acting like we didn't just lose? Right. And, so you talking 53 different personalities, on a plane ride after a loss. Everybody is different. So like I said, for me, man, it don't call me, don't talk to me, and don't let me have a bad game.
Yep. And that's why you became a great player.
That wraps up this best of edition of No Wrong Choices with Curtis Conway. What a story. If you'd like to hear the rest of it, part 2 is available right now wherever you're listening or on our website at NoWrongChoices.com. On behalf of Larry Shea, Tushar Saxena, and me, Larry Samuels, thank you so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, please support the show by following us on your favorite podcast platform while giving us a 5-star rating. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Threads simply by searching for No Wrong Choices. Thank you again for listening.